Hey guys, this is Mrs. Luxic. I noticed that there weren't videos for the sine and cosine practice quiz, so I wanted to make sure that you had access to that for today. So here we have some examples on the front of your practice quiz. There are 3 graphing examples. On the back, there's one and then a couple writing equations. So this is longer than your quiz will be, but if you can do all of these, I've taken the quiz as well, you should be fine. So first example is 3/2 cosine of pi x minus pi. You will have A, B, C, and D that you can label, and you will need to fill in the box over here off to the right as well. So let's start by doing that. So here A is 3/2, B is pi, C is pi, and D, since we don't have any thing on the outside of our function there, D is 0. So you have no vertical displacement there. I also like to label over here how I get the details that help me graph the amplitude period, etc. So the amplitude is A, and the period is 2 pi divided by B. Vertical displacement is just B. For a reflection, you're looking for a positive or a negative on the coefficient of your whole function or the coefficient of X. The phase shift is C divided by B. So if you know how to get if you know what all those little mini equations are, you're really in a good shape. Let's fill in our details now. Amplitude is 3/2 of 1.5. Period of the function is going to be 2 pi here divided by pi. So that's our p-value. So the period of our function is just 2. The vertical displacement is 0. We don't have a reflection here. Our A is positive and our B is positive. The phase shift is C over B, so that's pi over pi, which is 1. And the way you figure out that direction is from the sign in the middle. If it's negative, and the sign and the sign in front of the coefficient of that. But here, minus is to the right, positive is to the left. Just like when you work your parent function. So all of our details are filled out, and now we have to figure out how to actually make the graph happen. So here's what I know about cosine. My cosine parent function has an amplitude of 1 and a period of 2 pi. And then it breaks in half and then halves again. So I have maxes. Remember, cosine is a function that starts at 0, 1. Min in between, and then it crosses the x-axis in between those two. So that's what the parent function looks like. Not terribly artistic, so you probably will have to catch it. So I do a couple things here. First, the period of the function is 2. And the way I deal with that on my graph is 2 is going to be 4 spaces on my graph. Since I want to break each graph into 4ths, and now it's going to work the same for sine as well. So I'm going to break each graph into 4ths, so I need 4 spaces. So if I make 4 spaces 2, that means every space is going to be half. So you are going to need to label your x-axis. The thing that's different we can't just plop our graph down now with a period of 2 because we have the phase shift. So that's the last thing here. Our phase shift is 1 right. So instead of starting here on our y-axis, we're going to start 1 to the right with our pattern. So we have to remember our amplitude is 1.5. So I'm going to start here 1 to the right because of the phase shift. And then I can graph my function. So I'm just going to follow this pattern. I have a max, and my start here. Here, 1 period away is where I have the next max. So that's 4 spaces. As long as I've labeled my x-axis to match, and now I can just count 4 spaces. My min is right in between, so my min here is going to be a 2. x equals 2, y equals 1.5. Halfway in between, I cross the x-axis. Halfway in between. So that's one period of the function. And you should absolutely check that on your calculator. You want to check it on your calculator and make sure you do a couple of things. Make sure you have the same kind of dimensions to your graph, so play with your window so you have the same dimensions, and then you can kind of just count maxes and mins. I think your quiz directions usually say graph at least 2 periods. I usually make my students fill the graph. So when in doubt, fill the graph, but I'll graph 3 periods for you here. The domain is all reals. We use infinity to infinity. And the range is -1.5 to 1.5. All right, let's do another one together. It's a sine graph. So here I have sine of -4 sine of 2x plus pi over 2. And again, I'm going to fill out these details first. My A is 4. My B is 2. A, B, B, B. C is pi over 2. And D is 0. Now, before I forget, I have this negative out front. That is an x-axis reflection. So before I forget to deal with that, sine is our wave function. Usually our wave goes up above the x-axis and then below. But if we're going to do a reflection, and this works for either reflection across the x-axis for sine actually looks the same as the reflection across the y, it's going to go down and then up. And I think it is really helpful to write these details or write where all of the, if you're still struggling with where does amplitude come from, amplitude is A. Period is 2 pi divided by B. Vertical displacement is C. Phase shift is C over B. Because you really can't get the graph right without those details. So our amplitude here is 4. Period is 2 pi divided by 2. Vertical displacement is 0. Phase shift here is C over B, so pi over 2 divided by 2. I like that Ms. Krause makes how you guys do the stacked fraction. So here, pi over 1, or pi times 1, divided by 2 times 2. And since there's a plus in the middle with this one, that's going to be pi over 4 to the left. And that should be enough detail for us to graph. So on my graph, I'm going to come to the period of the function. Whatever that is, I'm going to make that 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there's pi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 pi. Okay. And now let's deal with our phase shift. Our phase shift is pi over 4 to the left. Well, if pi is 4 spaces out, pi over 4 to the left is going to be 1 space to the left. That's where I'm going to start my pattern for my sine graph. So if I come back up here to my little sketch, one period of the function is where midline to midline. So I'm going to start here at my phase shift. I'm going to count 4 spaces. That's the end of the function. Halfway in the between, I cross the x-axis. That's 2 spaces. Halfway in between the first 2, I'm going to have a min. And that min is going to be at -4 since our amplitude is 4. And halfway in between the second 2, I'm going to have a max at 4. And I'll do one more cycle for you. Domain here is all reals. Range is -4 to 4. Alright, I'm going to end this video here because I have trouble uploading sometimes, and I want to make sure I get these uploaded for you guys before third period. So before you click on the next video, which is going to have the next two graphs, which are another cosine graph and a sine graph, before you click on those, try to get something down, to get some details down, fill in your A's, B's, and D's, fill in your amplitude, try to graph it, and then use the video to check your work if you've been really relying on it. Hopefully this is helpful.